The Story of Rumpelstilskin. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a poor miller who wished to impress the king. He was not a bad man, but sometimes he told little lies to make himself seem more important than he really was. One day, while speaking to the king, he boasted, "My daughter is so clever and talented that she can spin straw into gold." The king was very interested in this, for he loved gold more than anything. "If what you say is true," the king said, "then bring your daughter to my castle tomorrow. I will put her to the test. But if you have lied, I shall be very displeased." The miller was terrified. He had only wanted to impress the king, and now his daughter was in danger because of his foolish words. He hurried home and told his daughter everything. She was a kind and gentle girl, but she had no idea how to spin straw into gold. "What shall we do, father?" she cried. "I cannot do such a thing." The next day the miller's daughter was brought to the castle. The king led her to a small room filled with straw and gave her a spinning wheel. "If you can spin this straw into gold by morning," he said, "you shall be greatly rewarded. But if you fail, there will be consequences." The girl sat down and stared at the straw, feeling helpless. She had no idea what to do. As she began to weep, suddenly the door creaked open, and in walked a tiny little man with a curious smile. "Good evening, my dear," he said. "Why are you crying?" "A kind sir," she sobbed. "The king expects me to spin this straw into gold, but I do not know how." The little man tapped his chin thoughtfully. "What will you give me if I do it for you?" he asked. The girl thought for a moment and then took off her necklace. "I will give you this," she offered. The little man nodded, took the necklace, and then got to work. He sat at the spinning wheel, and to the girl's amazement, the straw began to turn into shining golden thread. He worked all night, and by morning the room was filled with gold. When the king saw this, he was overjoyed. But instead of rewarding the girl, he took her to a bigger room filled with even more straw. "If you can do it again," he said, "I shall reward you greatly." Once again the girl sat down and despaired, and once again the little man appeared. "What will you give me if I spin the straw into gold this time?" he asked. The girl thought for a moment and then removed her ring. "I will give you this," she said. The little man accepted the ring and set to work. All night he spun, and by morning the room was filled with even more gold. The king was delighted, but his greed had grown. He took the girl to an even larger room filled with straw and said, "If you spin this into gold, you shall be my queen." That night the little man returned. "What will you give me this time?" he asked. The girl had nothing left to offer. She shook her head sadly. "I have nothing more to give," she said. The little man thought for a moment and then grinned. "Then promise me that when you become queen, you will give me your firstborn child." The girl gasped. "But—" "I will not ask for anything else," the little man said. "And if you do not promise, I will not help you." The girl did not know what else to do. She was frightened and desperate, so she made the promise. The little man set to work, and by morning the entire room was filled with gold. The king was so pleased that he kept his word and married the miller's daughter. She became queen, and in time she grew to love her new life. She had almost forgotten her promise to the little man, until she had a beautiful baby boy. One night, as she rocked her child in her arms, the little man appeared. "Now, dear queen," he said, "it is time to keep your promise. Give me the child." The queen's heart broke. "Please, no," she begged. "I will give you all the riches in the kingdom, but do not take my child." The little man frowned. "A promise is a promise," he said. But when he saw how desperately the queen loved her baby, he sighed. "Very well," he said. "I will give you 3 days. If you can guess my name, you may keep your child. If not, he is mine." For 3 days the queen sent messengers to search the land for every name they could find. She tried name after name. Is it William? Is it John? Is it Henry? But each time the little man shook his head. "No, no, no, that is not my name." On the 3rd night, just when all hope seemed lost, a messenger returned with a strange tale. "Your Majesty," he said, "I came upon a little cottage deep in the forest. I saw a tiny man dancing around a fire, singing, 'Tomorrow I bake, tomorrow I brew, then the queen's child shall be mine too.' Ha! Little does she know my game, for Rumpelstiltskin is my name." The queen gasped with joy. The next morning, when the little man returned, she smiled. "Is your name Rumpelstiltskin?" The little man's eyes widened in shock. "How did you know that?" he cried. He stomped his foot so hard that he made a crack in the floor. Then, with an angry huff, he disappeared in a puff of smoke and was never seen again. The queen sighed in relief and hugged her baby tightly. From that day forward, she ruled wisely and kindly, and never again did she make a promise she could not keep. And so the miller's daughter, who had once been a poor girl with nothing, lived happily ever after with her family in the grand castle, safe and sound. The end. Thank you for listening, and I hoped you liked this story. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I have plenty more fairy tales for you.